I think it was watching some of the coaches I worked for operate. And so I had the opportunity to work for some national championship level coaches as an assistant and walked into their programs and cultures. At the end of the day, the best teams are teams that are filled with people who want to make others better. And there's a level of self-sacrifice. And to us, that's living last.
Welcome back to Matters in Meaning. In this episode, we discuss the matter of coaching. To help us, we are joined by guest Hudson Welty, the head coach of the Southeastern University Fire men's basketball team. His coaching journey has taken him from Covenant College in Tennessee to Indiana Wesleyan University, Arizona Christian University, back to his alma mater, and to where he is now, all before the age of 30. He shares his experiences and provides keen insights into living last, being passionate, authentic relationships, and toughness. Enjoy this conversation with Hudson.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
For sure.
It really does. It does mean quite a bit that you would take the time.
Dude, this is fun
to do it.
This is
so.
Yeah. Our president at Southeastern does a podcast, and he'll have coaches on every now and then. So I love it.
Yeah,
it's cool content creation.
What's the president coach relationship like in college? Does it vary?
Yeah. Some are more engaged than others. Our president loves athletics, so he comes to all of our games and sits in the same spot. But as far as like personal relationship, I don't know him too well.
Mm-hmm.
Just with you meet him officially every now and then, and that's it. So
yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
because like, what about? I mean, does those types of relationships vary significantly at the collegiate level between like NAIA level versus say an Alabama university?
I would assume so. Yeah, because Nick Saban is probably more popular than the president, so the president probably is boys with him to a degree for money purposes, right? So
interesting.
Yeah,
that's so fascinating, man. It's such a.
And I think the longer you are somewhere, like the more a relationship with the president can become a thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, today I wanted to talk to you about coaching, right? Because when you look at the topic of like coaching, you're like, dude, like,
right.
There's full podcasts literally just about coaching.
Yeah.
And so the idea is not to cover the topic of coaching is a skill and a craft. And we can talk about some of those things. It's fine.
Yeah.
But the point is that on this podcast, what I try to do is I like to look at things from a worldview perspective.
Yep.
And it's kind of a dumb thing to say because you look at everything through a worldview lens.
Right.
But
everyone has their own, right?
Exactly. So, but the point is I want to consider coaching kind of in that light. When you think about for you coaching at its deepest level and you kind of, what do you think you're actually doing when you think about it as a coach in players' lives?
I think for me, the reason I got into coaching was because of the relationship aspect with my coaches growing up and in college. And so I think for me to get a head coaching job at a young age, I had a pretty clear vision and mission for who I am as a person and as a coach. And so I want to develop the character of Christ in my players and prepare them for a life of impact. That's what the coaches who coached me, who had the big impact on me did. And that's what I want to do for my guys too. And so, yeah, like basketball, X's and O's, the tactical part of the game is really, really fun. But more than anything, it's you're with a group of dudes for 9 months every single day almost. And you get to have an impact on them. And so for us at Southeastern, where I'm at, just the lens of looking at everything through Christ and who he is and identity and those things. At the end of that's why I do what I do. And it's a fun way to do ministry, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I guess it would be worth taking the time though from a worldview. We're talking about it from approaching it like how does your worldview inform your coaching?
Right.
What is your worldview?
Yeah, I look at the world through a Christian lens, right? That Jesus is Lord and Savior, and that He created all of us, and everyone has a purpose through a relationship with Him, and that's the basis of my worldview for sure.
You said you were a coach at a young age.
Yep.
And so, just do a real quick background and backdrop of your story that would lead you to coaching, and generally, it's not just specific to basketball, but just like
right.
What throughout your athletic experience is kind of getting. I would never have had a desire to be a coach.
Right.
And I played basketball for my whole life.
Yep.
What was different for you?
It was just the men in my life that had a huge impact on me, that changed the trajectory of my life. From when I didn't know the Lord, or when I faked knowing the Lord, to when I fully accepted who I was as a believer. And so that started in like 8th grade, 9th grade with men who cared about me more than just the result of a game or a practice or a possession. And that transformed who I was over the course of 8 years in high school and college. And yeah, to answer your question.
Yeah, no, it's just like, so you saw the personal impact that these men had on you and your personal journey and character development and growth.
Yep.
That experience to you was the motivating factor of, hey, I want to do the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I was like, I don't see anything more fun than and they made it look fun too, and it sounded fun. So I think like in college I knew I wanted to make an impact on people. Well, the men in my life in college were my coaches. Like, man, they're making an impact on us every single day. And so there's nothing else I really had on my mind after my sophomore year of college. Like, yeah, I'm going to coach. Like this is what I'm called to do. This is the vocation that the Lord has in front of me. So it's cool when you look back and reflect, even in the moment when you're in high school or when you're in college and you don't necessarily feel like you're loving it. Like those men had a huge impact on who I am today, why I coach, how I coach, and I couldn't be more grateful. So
it's really fascinating. So you said your sophomore year in college, you were like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Did that change how you approached playing the last couple of years of your collegiate career? Did you look at it less from a player lens and start thinking like, okay, I know I'm not going to be in the NBA.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I want to coach. And so did that affect how you were, did that affect how you went about things?
To some extent. I think I had a pretty good self-awareness of my strengths and weaknesses as a player. And you can ask my little brother about those things too. Growing up, I think a lot of players today don't have self-awareness, and maybe that hurts them later on in life. But I feel like I had a pretty good self-awareness of who I was, and then just the element of my sophomore year was like, yeah, I want to do this, and so there's just greater meaning to playing, I think. Knowing that I wanted to continue to learn the game, like the tactical side, but also like, hey, how's coach motivating us today? Like, just as you start to think about those things, like how's he getting this group of dudes to feel connected today?
Yeah.
And you start to think about those things on a more deeper level.
That's awesome. So you also talked about your brother. Was he an athlete as well? Was he a basketball guy?
Yeah, my little brother was a really good basketball player. He got to play at Northwest Missouri State, a really good D2 team, and won 2 national titles, and played a lot. And so he is someone obviously who's 2 years younger than me, but I love watching him play. And we got to play together in high school, which was probably some of the most fun I've had playing basketball. And so he's just someone that you just connect with because we have very similar interests, and he's still kind of in coaching to some degree. He trains little kids, and so yeah. I mean, he's someone who's had a huge impact on just me as a person and as a coach too, with kind of some of his experiences as a player.
Yeah. Did you find yourself coaching him at a younger age?
Not necessarily. More so competing against and competing with than coaching. I'm sure he'd say the same thing.
Yeah. I remember there's nothing better than there's nothing better than the big brother.
Oh yeah,
coaching you up.
Oh yeah.
So
or bullying you a little bit in the driveway.
Dude, my brother, my oldest brother, who's my best friend on the planet. I remember when we were younger, he pinned me down on the ground because we had our Pee Wee helmets on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I played for the Raiders. It was
the Raiders.
Yeah, dude, it was bad. So I played for the Raiders, and he pinned me down, and he just started smashing his face into my face mask.
Oh wow,
his face mask into mine, and just pinned me down. And I remember I reached up and I put my finger in between, and our face mask just went. And I was just like freaking out, just running in. But it was the older brother is a special thing.
Oh yeah,
it really is. So
I hope so.
It very much is. I mean, I'm a younger brother, so I can speak on behalf of your brother. But that's pretty special. So one of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking about influence and impacting, right? Like it sounds good in theory. It sounds good as an idea, but kind of how's the sausage actually made? Because you're dealing with human beings, right? These players, like I would assume that not every player wants to be influenced. When you think about it from a personnel management perspective, when you think about it from working with people, oftentimes people who might be resistant to what you're doing,
right?
Like, What's that look like? How's the sausage actually made, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense?
No, it's a really good question. For us at the college level, we get to recruit our roster to some degree at Southeastern, and so um, we look for common themes in recruiting about the type of people that we're recruiting. We love guys who have a growth mindset and who are honest and vulnerable. Specifically, you can see that over the course of their career with their basketball game, but also like as you get to know a kid off the floor in their relationships, if they're open to being pushed in other ways other than just basketball. And so that's something we look for in recruiting and we talk about with kids and we get to know from their coaches and different people in their life. But then you're right, like when so to speak, stuff hits the fan in a locker room or in a practice or, just day to day in the grind of a college basketball season, who are you really? And so for us, I mean, every kid's a little different, but and people are messy. Like from my perspective, from my worldview, like there's this thing called sin that is evident every single day, and no one's perfect. But we just want those guys with the understanding that they don't have all the answers and can have a growth mindset, whether that's with running a play or, hey man, the way you treated your teammate in this situation wasn't cool. And how can we grow from it? And so definitely look at it in recruiting. And then we have 4 guardrails in our program, standard, so to speak, to have behaviors that match up to what we're asking, that kind of help keep us moving in the right direction over the course of a season. And also there are 4 things that we want our guys to live into, and we want to look at those things in March. Like, man, we grew in those four different areas versus in September where it was messy. And so those 4 things for us are: living last is our number 1, putting God first, others second. Passionate is number 2. We want guys who live the game of basketball, who live wanting to get better and bring a ferocious energy to the gym. We want a unified team, which to us, we just define it as authentic relationships with your teammates. And then tough is our last one. And we just define toughness as next play, next task. And so for each of those 4 guardrails, so to speak, or standards of living in our program, like we want to see growth over those 4 things over the course of a year. And for us, if you have players with a growth mindset who are bought in and want to be there, it kind of happens naturally.
One of the things that's always been fascinating to me that I don't understand is, how does a coach in the recruiting process? So do you feel like you have like that natural intuition to be able to spend time with a potential or a prospective player and be like, I got a good read on this guy? Or if you don't have that, how do you do that? Do you bring somebody along with you who does have that? Like,
Yeah.
what's the way that a coach can actually vet a player, if that makes any sense, to try to find the right fit for how you're trying to build your culture?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it starts with your staff and hiring guys who are a little different than you, that can relationally just do different things, whether it's on the phone call or getting to know a kid, and can read a kid different than you can. And then from that, I think it's time too. And with the recruiting world we live in now, like that time piece is being taken out of it a little bit with recruiting transfers. But traditionally, like you get to know a kid over the course of a year. And so you're seeing everything when you go to the in-home visit, when you go watch them practice, when you go to the high school game or the AAU game. And so more than anything, I think the Lord has been good to me and just giving me a discerning viewpoint on kids and families, to be able to see where they're at and how they respond to different things and if they'd be a good fit for my coaching style, because not everyone is. And then my staff, you want to help kind of position guys that maybe have strengths that are your weaknesses to some degree in recruiting, and so can connect with the kid in a different way. And like, hey, is he really about it, or is he just blowing smoke type thing? So I think that the time piece is huge. I think hiring a staff that's a little different than you, that can identify strengths and weaknesses, but also I think just the feel of a kid. Like, I think I do a pretty good job of being able to read through the smoke that's blown because they like that the college coach is talking to them, so to speak.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes me kind of want to pivot to this conversation about well, I did an episode a couple episodes ago or a few episodes ago with my first guest on the series with a guy named Michael Span, who I played basketball with in college.
Okay, nice.
And what we talked about was, do sports still matter? That's the question we asked, and not specifically, and we asked it specifically from the question of, hey, does the value that it brings to the culture, does it supersede the negativity, right? Because there's always been toxicity in sport, right? Always. You could probably go to the ancient world in the Colosseum,
right?
And you go back to the various sports that they used that were all martial. There was toxicity in those. So the point is that it's not new, but with the direction, like, and you kind of hinted at it with in our conversation before we started recording, was just the reality of NIL, the changes that it makes, the impact and the influence of money and how that's happening. And so from a coach's perspective, how do you balance the reality that, because in a previous podcast, I talked to a pastor named Jim, and Jim talked about how he sees something like sports, who often it's a malaise that people, they get so obsessed with stuff that doesn't, when it comes to, from a Christian worldview perspective, the eternal reality of all of our souls.
Right.
When you think about sports in light of that, it's literally nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you balance the passion, the drive that is required to do what you do as a coach, I'm sure.
For sure.
With the reality that in the grand scheme compared, it doesn't really matter as much. So it's like, I see in our culture that kind of that toxicity of sport degrading and taking away from the culture, the benefits that it provided from community and learning from friends. And the reason I say that is just to frame the question of, do you see sports moving in a direction in our culture that makes it less valuable? Or do you think that in spite of those things, it still retains its meaning and purpose in terms of its value to the culture?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Man, I think sports are extremely valuable in teaching life lessons that you can't maybe learn other places. Whether it's teamwork, working with people, competition, like that's a real thing in our world. I think just like anything, it's been, especially at the collegiate level, it's been skewed to only think about yourself and what's in it for me. But I also think you could look back 25 years ago and say the same thing. Now there's just money involved.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, like, I think sports are still super valuable. And obviously I'm a little biased because it's the world I live in. But man, the transformation that can happen and how the Lord can use a sport to bring a group of people together from who knows where. Like, it's so cool when you look at a locker room, like, this kid's from New York, this kid's from California, this kid's from Florida, this kid has a single mom, this kid has two normal parents. Like, it's so cool what sport can do. And when you're looking at it through a Christian worldview and Christian lens, like, the transformation of what the Lord can do on a team. Like, I think God created basketball on purpose. And I think the founder of basketball, James Naismith, created it to return the glory back to the Lord, and to bring kids to get kids out of trouble, so to speak, when he created it, to use it for something better. And so, man, I think the world we live in, just like anything, has the evil one has deceived us and turned it into something that makes it, from a maybe outsider's lens, like, why, like, but man, I think there's a lot of redemptive qualities in sport still.
Yeah. It's great to hear that too, from a balance perspective, right? Because one of the things that I've really tried to do as I've had conversations with people is that when you get into something like podcasting or, the content creation space, sensationalism sells, right? There's a reason that people put thumbnails the way that they do. There's the reason that people, make titles the way that they do. They're trying to, if you're trying to make a living doing something like this, you have to kind of play that algorithmic game. Mm-hmm. And so the reason I say that is the same applies in news. You can apply to sports, whatever you want to apply to, ESPN.
Yep.
We, as a common man like myself, all I see are the headlines of what Dabo Sweeney dealt with at Clemson with the guy from Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Right? You have literally a player making more money to not do what he said he's going to do.
Right.
It's like you're setting that young man up for destruction outside of sport.
Yep.
It's because nobody wants people in their community who won't do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
And so, there's no integrity there. And that's the stuff that I see.
Yeah.
Is there levels to this stuff? Because I think that most people in culture see those things and they're like, man, like, there's no point in this.
Yeah.
I played at the NAIA level.
Yep.
You're coaching at Southeastern at the NAIA level. So when you think about it from does the landscape of college sports specifically, because that's the world you're in,
Yep.
is it just not as bad as people think? Like, is there more good happening than there is the bad things that we see at the highest level?
I would argue yes, because when you look at it from just the headline view, like you're seeing the extremities of this different situations. I think at the end of the day, if you were to look at a basketball locker room, there's 12 to 16 dudes in there that are, like, for the most part, hopefully in there to win the day, whatever that looks like. And so, even if you were to look at the Final Four, the Division I Final Four, those 4 teams probably have the four highest NIL budgets. They have the players that are paid the most. And does that matter? Absolutely, for them to win. But at the end of the day, you still have to go play a game, and there still has to be team dynamics. There still has to be a unity on offense and defense. And so, the purity of the game, I still think is there. Like you still have to compete to win. Like you're just not going to roll it out and win a game. But at the NAIA level, like our guys aren't getting paid $1.5 million to make threes or get defensive stops, and so I think there's levels to it for sure. And I think that the higher level you go, the more of a business it becomes. But it's true at our level too. Like if players are on scholarships aren't performing, like, well, someone has to perform. So, but that's also why you like sports, though, too, the competition aspect of performing and playing to a score and things of that nature. So,
well, when you say performance, that's really interesting too, because I would like to get your perspective on this, specifically how your worldview informs balancing something like this, because performance. That's not just a sports idea, right? Like there's KPIs at work. There's things that, in the professional world where you are very much expected to do what you're required to do, or what's expected of you. So, and you kind of talked about that. How do you balance that, the patience to give opportunity to get to where they need to get to, while also simultaneously navigating beneath that pressure of, hey, in the end, you do need to do what you're supposed to do. And if you can't, I got to find somebody else.
Right.
How do you find that? I can't imagine. That seems like a very challenging balance to find.
Yeah, it is. It really is. We talk to our guys about identity a lot. Basketball's not who you are. It's what you do. And that's true of any profession, right? It's not who you are. It's the job that is at hand. Like, the reason guys compete a lot of ways is to play to a score, right? To win. And the feeling of winning or what winning does for you. But at the end of the day, if that's your driving factor, you're not going to be, or reach your full potential. And so for us, we want guys who love the process more than the result. Love the process of growth, love the process of being a part of a team, of getting better. And sometimes, and more often than not, like those types of guys, they'll at some point like get to that point where they're reaching their potential in your program, and like they're performing or they're producing results that are desired for them and for the team. And I think it's the kids that are so driven by, or even the coaches that are so driven by the result that, man, that'll help in the moment, but that's when it's like, okay, transactional, like, you're not doing enough for me. Let's get you out of here, or go to the next job, or whatever it may be.
Do you feel like, I think that this is probably every single generation. Every generation has a tendency to look back at the one behind it and say they're a disaster.
Yeah.
Which is nonsensical, because I'm like, if the upcoming generation is a direct reflection of the leadership of the generation in front of it. So it's like you're literally talking crap about yourself.
Right.
Like, just saying that we're all terrible leaders.
Yeah.
So, but the reason I say that is I think that there's an idea in our culture where there's just like, these kids don't know how to work. They don't know how to do this. They don't know how to do that. Is that true? I mean, you're working with these young people on a day in and day out basis, and you're talking about, we want people who they appreciate the process more than the result, the work, the grind to get to where they want to get. Is that a trait that you find is lacking in the people that you're currently and then obviously I would never ask you to do this specifically for players. I'm just saying generally, because you're meeting a lot of these young kids. Like, Is that just a fallacy, or you're like, no, there's many grinders out there still?
No, I think there is. There's a lot of kids that love the process of getting better, or just the process of growth, whatever it may be. But just like anything, there's also the people that are just chasing the result, or the satisfaction of whatever it may be.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about that I was really interested about is just this idea of, because as a coach, you are virtually, I mean, you are a manager, you're an
Right.
organizational manager. So personnel management is a part of that.
Yep.
And one of the things that I've often seen that coaches have to deal with is you work in a event or a sport where you have every action that is taken by the individual has a corporate consequence.
Yep.
And how do you balance the disciplinary component of things?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, because you have to teach that, hey, our actions have a communal impact every time, every
Right.
possession.
Yep.
But also at the same time, there's going to be situations, I'm sure, where there's an individual's actions who, so how do you balance the disciplinary corporate versus individual element of discipline on a team? That's just something that I'm really fascinating about.
Yeah. I think for us, like, it's standards of living, so to speak, or playing. So how hard you play, your effort, your energy. But with our guys, we talk a lot about who are you becoming in our program. And so over the course of time is their growth. And so, the freshman that's walking in the gym 3 minutes before preseason conditioning in the morning in September, hopefully his junior year is like the one bringing the energy at 5:30 in the morning. And so I think that's one of the parts I love about my job, is being able to see that growth in the standards of a program, right? And who a kid is becoming over the course of time. But just like with anything, I think actions have consequences, whether positive or negative. And so we want, obviously, in a game, like, we want the actions or the consequences of all our actions to be in the positive direction for our team, right? And so whether that's off the court issues or on the court, directly correlating to makes and misses, or getting stops, not getting stops, like, there's going to be things that are always the standard. And I think that's what makes the best programs the best programs. There's a really high standard and a really high accountability to that, but there's a lot of grace too, in helping a kid grow. And that's something I'm still learning, like the battle, like, grace versus truth, like in a job. Like, hey, you messed up, go get it again. Or, shoot, man, you need to come sit next to me. You know what I mean? So that's something I'm still learning. I think that's a lifelong pursuit of learning that, because every kid's different too, and how they'll meet the standard or not meet the standard, whether it's playing or going to class or whatever it may be.
When you talk about the standards too, something that because I've seen this play out too in the professional world, and there's a lot of different approaches to not just coming up with standards, but then how they're communicated and conveyed. And one of the things that I was really interested in the athletic or coaching space is, number one, how do you convey those standards?
Yep.
Does it change year to year? And what was the process of you coming up with those standards in the first place? And again, can that change year to year, or are those like, hey, these things will never change?
Yeah.
And I threw like 3 questions at you right there.
There you go.
But how does that kind of play out for a coach? Because Mike Tomlin, right? The standard is the standard, right? You hear that in sport.
Yep.
So what is that like? How's the sausage made?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. As you're building a culture, at first, like, you have to put your foot down. So this was my second year as the head coach, and there were things that were maybe okay prior to me being the head coach that were no longer okay. And whatever that meant, like showing up on time, or the energy you bring in practice, or going to class. And you put your foot down, and then hopefully over time, you don't have to teach it. It's just caught by the guys coming in, caught, not taught, so to speak. And it just becomes the way of life of meeting the bare minimum. So, and then that's when I think you can get sweet with your culture and with your program. Is, okay, like, our bare minimum is we're showing up 10 minutes early. We're bringing unbelievable energy every day. Our guys go to class. They sit in the first couple of rows. We play this hard on offense and defense. So then we can go to another level and another level. And so when Mike Tomlin says the standard is the standard, well, he was there for 20 plus years and built a dynamic power in Pittsburgh. And I think that's as you look at some of the most successful college basketball coaches that have been in their programs for a while, where they're at now wasn't where they started with their culture and their standards. And so us going on year 3 at Southeastern, man, we want the little things that we've implemented in the first 2 years. Like, okay, our players are teaching those. It's not me. It's not coming from me. It's coming from the group. And then like the coaching staff's job is, okay, well, how can we get to a different level now that the bare minimums is leveled out.
Yeah. So as the expectations, can increase as you continue to establish or build your culture. So you kind of talked earlier about those 4 kind of fundamental pillars.
Yep.
Are those things that you think could ever adapt or change for your program? Or is that something where, hey, as long as I'm at Southeastern, these things will always be there?
Yeah, good question. I think they can change. I think those 4 things are really descriptive of who I want to be as a coach and what if someone were to come watch us practice in the middle of January that doesn't know basketball, I would love for them to say, man, your players they're really together. They practice hard. And to us, like that would be our standards, like coming to life. Like when someone who has no clue about our program comes in and sees it. But as you grow and change as a coach, I think there's things that go with you and things that maybe you realize when you first got in are different now, or something that maybe matters more now than it did when you first implemented those 4 things. And so I think they can change, but I think for the time being, those are the 4 things we're about. And I think if you look across the history of basketball, if you have an unselfish team, if you have a tough team, if you have a team that doesn't care about who gets the credit, those teams usually are pretty good. So.
Yeah. When you kind of think about worldview and its application in coaching, how does that influence and impact how you handle pressure? Because, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it's like to coach.
Right.
I don't, but I would assume no matter what level, especially at the collegiate level, the pressure to win, the pressure to see your work actually, like the see that, I don't know, you could use, I know that there's a lot of different ways to observe improvement, but you're seeing what you're trying to do is working. Like, hey, whether it's faster or slower, how does that inform how you handle that pressure?
Yeah, it's funny. The same things you share with your team or try to help your team grow, and like, you got to look in the mirror too. And so when we talk about basketball is not who you are, but what you do, is the same as true as for me. It's not who I am. And I would say as a young coach, that's a battle, because you want to win a game. Like, everyone knows if you have won or lost. It's one of those professions where, like, people know how you're doing the next day. Like, they can look up the score. You know what I mean? So, I think that's a lifelong pursuit. I think as you grow and as you get older and as you just grow in the wisdom of the game and of your relationship with your team, it's something where the players will kind of play to the strengths of their coach too. So if the coach has this unbelievable pressure on him and he looks so nervous over there and like he's dying on every possession, like, their team's going to play that way too. And so I think for me as the head coach of our program, like, being able to coach free, with a free mind and a free spirit to allow our players to play that way, or at least to be the example, like, hey, coach is cool. Like, let's go compete hard. And I think just being that example. But man, that's a growth process. Like, I would say in my first year as the head coach, like, I thought I was going to get fired after every game, after every loss. But then as you grow and you learn, it's like, no, like, let's just be the things, or be the change you want to see in your team too. If you want your team to play better, well, you gotta coach more free.
Yeah. Is it easy to kind of separate yourself? Do you feel like being under that pressure, do you feel like that provides a good platform from which to demonstrate or to show the worldview foundation that you have? It's like, hey, people, you're handling your pressure is on, like you said, it's a very public event.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, have you noticed that that's afforded you opportunities to be able to share your worldview belief with other people? Be like, hey, they're like, hey man, you seem like you handle pressure well. It's like, well, there's experience in that, but there's also, I have a solid foundation that I'm standing on. Do you feel like that has allowed you opportunities to do that, or no?
I would say with concrete examples, no. Will those come? Yes, I believe so. But I do think the day-to-day with my roster and my players and even my coaching staff being able to see how we handle things, or how I handle things, whether it is pressure to win a game or whatever moment in practice, or whatever conflict may arise. Like I believe that they're looking to you as the leader of the program, and I think that the foundation of who Jesus says I am and who I am in Christ can reign true, even if it's not verbally said, but just with a steady heart and mind, knowing that that's where my identity lies.
Yeah, one thing that I'm really interested to pick your brain on is the idea of favoritism.
Yeah,
right. Like, how does a coach not fall into such a trap?
Yeah.
Like, I you know what I mean? It's like, it seems like it would be, and I would never ask you a question during this conversation that would ever potentially compromise you with your players, right? That I would never do that.
Yeah.
I just, like, anybody who's being honest with anybody who's in leadership, whether that's in sport, whether that's in the professional world, it's a parent, is a family.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, anybody who's a parent is lying if they're saying that there's times where, like, golly, dude, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the case, right? So the reason I say that is, it seems like it would be a very easy trap to fall into.
Yep.
How do you, or number one, are you aware of something like that? Do coaches even think about that, or is there so much going on you don't even have that? That's what the standard is for. So it's like, how do you avoid that trap, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are lying to you if they don't say coaches don't have favorites. But it's the kids that are like fully bought in. You know what I mean? Now, does that mean they're going to play more than other people? Probably not. Maybe. But no, I think favoritism is a thing in coaching. I think coaches' favorites are usually the kids that play really hard, that are smart, that only care about winning, that don't care about themselves. Like, I think that's a real thing. Now, are all your kids like that? No. You want everyone to be the coach's favorite. Like, you want everyone to be bought into those things. But the kids that don't think about themselves, honestly, in an era where everyone only thinks about themselves, those kids stand out. And we want a lot of those kids in our program. So, I think favoritism is a real thing in coaching, like just like it would be in other professions where certain people are performing to a certain, you know what I mean? So I think it is a thing in coaching. Now, is it right all the time? Maybe not. But in my mind, in the way that we see our players in regard to like what we want them to buy into, like the guys that are buying into the things we're about, we think those things are really important and can impact winning, but also can impact who you are as a person in a really good way. And so, yeah, we want those guys around our program all the time. And the guys that are bought into those things, like, we're going to use them as examples, or as maybe they're leaders for our guys, because the things that they're about are the things that we're about as a staff.
Yeah, I love that response so much, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's just like in the raw. It's one of the things I have a lot of appreciation for coaches, because what it literally it does not matter if you are Shane Steichen, right? I'm an Indianapolis guy, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I love Shane Steichen. I love the Colts, right?
Yeah.
Like, he manages a big organization.
Go Chiefs.
Yeah.
I had to throw that in there.
It's okay, man. The I'm not a trash talker, dude. I have got no idea what to say right now. I've got no idea what to say. We haven't been to playoffs in like 12 years or whatever, so I got nothing to say. Like 7 Super Bowls or whatever it is you guys have been to in the last 2 years.
It's kind of nice.
Yeah. So you got me frazzled with the trash talk, dude. I remember.
It's all right. We had a bad year last year, but we'll get it back. Don't worry,
dude. I remember in basketball in college, man, guys would be like, and I'd be like, oh,
just go outscore them, right?
No, dude.
Let your game do the talking.
Well, that's the thing. I suck. It was just like the worst. So you're just like, just be really, really friendly.
Yeah. Just be overly nice. They'll really confuse them.
Just play really, really hard defense and be really nice.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that I appreciate for coaches is that you manage not just players, like you manage coaches too.
Yep.
And I thought that's been interesting. I was watching the tournament this year, and you just look on the sidelines and you see these guys, like Matt Painter for Purdue, right? He doesn't even run his huddle. He has an assistant coach do it, which I thought was really interesting. So what's it like from a leadership perspective to work with and lead the coaches as well as the players? And what's it like to navigate between, do you have to kind of change hats, right? You're like, I'm working with a player now, I'm working with a coach, so that my approach has to change.
Yep.
Is that hard to do? Is that something that?
Yeah, good question. I think, in a lot of ways, it's the same thing. However, there's more of a group understanding and team understanding when you're working with your coaches. Like, hey, we know we're after the same thing. Whereas with players, you never really know what the motivation is behind everything as you get to know them. But with your staff, I think if you have a unified staff, the players see that and they feel that. If you have a connected staff, they see that and feel that. And the best coaches I worked for coming up through the ranks were guys who trusted me and gave me opportunity to learn and grow and make mistakes. And so that's what I hope to do for my staff too. And then, like, let's talk about it. Okay, why'd you think that, or why'd you do this? What were you thinking here? And really, that's where the real growth happens, I think. And so, the Division I staffs, they have 47 assistant coaches for their 12 players. It seems like.
I literally thought that you meant that. I was like, 7.
No, there's a lot more coaches than there are players on the high majors, the staffs that mentioned Purdue. At our level, like, there's usually 3 or 4 of us, and so we wear a lot of hats within our program, and I want to be able to give my staff a lot of ownership, just like the coaches I worked for did for me. And I think the players can see when you're on the same page or when you're not. And there's days when you're not, right? But as a leader, you have to be able to make sure we're all moving in the same direction, that we're unified. And when we hit the floor every day, we have to be on the same page. Yeah. And your players feel that.
Yeah, this kind of turns to, and this is kind of a sharp turn, but hang with me. Do you, as a leader at the collegiate level, and when we think about worldview and how that guides, you through that coaching experience, do you face, or have you observed coaches who have faced challenges to compromise integrity?
Yeah.
Is that just like a constant tension that a coach feels? Like, think about something like recruiting, right? Like, and you referenced earlier Clemson and that guy at Ole Miss, right? Like, complete lack of integrity, to do that, right? Like, there's a very clear what is the worldview of that coach at Ole Miss, right? Like, I don't know this gentleman. I want to be very careful. Like, I very much understand that I'm a common man, right? So, but the point is that through those actions, I can ascertain certain things about a worldview, because integrity is not an integral part, of what he does, right? And that's very obvious to see. So, do coaches live under a tension of, if I just did this, I feel like I could get that edge? Yeah. And, do you feel pressures like that? And if you do, how do you navigate those? Do you have accountability for yourself? Like, what does that look like? Yeah.
No, I think at the highest level, that's a real thing, specifically with the money on the line now. And that's changed in the last 5 years since or even since I got into playing college basketball 12, 15 years ago. At our level, there are those are things, but it's not to the degree of Clemson Ole Miss situation, or where there's millions of dollars on the table, or if we start talking to this kid in December when he's playing on a completely different team, we'll get him. Like, those things happen at the highest level. They happen at the NAI level too, but I think I think our staff and our program and the administration at our institution, like, they've given us pretty, not strict, but like clear guidelines. Like, this is how we're going to do things, and we're going to do things the right way. And if we lose because of it, so be it. But we're going to do the right thing and go about our business the right way. So I would say, just from my own personal perspective, there's not much pressure to do the wrong thing, so to speak, to pursue doing things the wrong way, like maybe some staffs get away with. At the end of the day, like, if that's truly why we want to do if that's truly going to help us win a game, like what are we really doing here? And when you go back to, like, why I do what I do, it's not to win a game, it's to impact people. So I don't think you can impact people at a high level if you're swindling underneath the table on how you're doing things.
Yeah. Do you feel like, for you, like, does that, seeing that reality and that tension that coaches face, like, would that ever influence your desire to, hey, say the Kansas City Chiefs decided, you know what, we're going to pull a Ted Lasso here. Hey, Hudson, we want you to come and be the, Would that,
Slap the board, believe, baby.
yeah, does
Yeah.
that almost like make it like, even if I had the opportunity to go and coach at the Division I level, I wouldn't even want to do it because of all the nonsense.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the nonsense increases the higher level you get with the money involved.
Yeah.
And I think that's with anything too. Not necessarily. I think there's really good people that do it at that level too and are doing it the right way. And so, I love where I'm at. And I think if one of those opportunities present themselves, what I've told different people all the time is like, it's all about who you work for. If the guy you're working for is win at all costs, well, then there's going to be pressure to do things that maybe aren't right. But if it's truly about impact, and you can impact people at Purdue, you can impact people at Southeastern University, you can impact people at Triton Central High School down the street.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, to answer your question.
Yeah. Well, how do you do that then as a coach, man? Because it's like that you bring that up, and it's so true, right? Like I've worked in corporate America in places where people have that.
Right.
You feel that pressure.
Yeah.
You feel like I need the line of integrity can become so gray so quick.
Yep.
And it's not a gray thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're either being honest or you're not.
Yeah.
However, we can make it gray so that we can give ourselves an excuse to take this step or that step.
Yeah.
I have felt that pressure before.
Right.
Where I've had people directly ask me in the corporate world to do things that are illegal, immoral, and unethical.
Yep.
And I want to sit here and tell people like, hey, I am a shining example of
Yeah.
that. But you better believe that I felt the crushing pressure.
Oh, for sure.
Because I'm like, hey, this is how my family has health insurance. This
Right.
is like, so there's those common pressures that come alongside with it. So
Yep.
it's easy to talk a big game, but
Right.
it's another thing to hold fast in that line.
Yeah.
So how do you ensure that you don't put that type of pressure on your coaches and your players? Of,
Yeah.
hey, how do you not put that pressure on them?
Yeah.
But also at the same time, kind of like what you said about when you first take over a leadership position, not putting yourself in a position to be either A, taken advantage of, or
Right.
be exploited.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, hey, I'm not going to put a crushing pressure on you to perform, but
Yeah.
also at the same time, I'm not going to be somebody that you can walk over either. I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like that could be a difficult balance to find.
Yeah. I think along the lines of ethical versus unethical decisions and leadership, whether it's coming from external pressures or internal pressures within the organization, I think at the end of the day, each person has a line in the sand that they have to draw. Like, okay, what's enough's enough, or okay, like I'll tiptoe over the line here and see what we can get into. And I think it comes down to administration. It comes down to just who you are. And at the end of the day, going back to what we've talked about, like why I coach isn't to get a bunch of wins or to make a bunch of money. And the outside world may see that, like, hey, great season, man. Like, are you going to go get another job? No, I love it where I'm at and what we're doing here. And we have alignment within leadership and with our coaching staff and with our players. And so, we're going to do things the right way. And along those lines, like, hopefully we're helping players grow. And then when they leave our program, they know what like right and wrong is, or can at least discern it and have a moral compass, or they have a relationship with the Lord that they started in our program that has transformed their life. And so, just along the lines of decision making, whether it's in recruiting or whether it's in, a basketball schematic thing, like we want to do things the right way. Like we don't want to cheat. Like that's not what we're called to do. That's not how you impact people. In fact, that's how you disintegrate a situation. That's how that's how cultures explode or implode on themselves.
That's awesome. That's a deep point. Well, one of the have you ever been a part of a toxic team or a toxic, in a toxic situation?
Yeah.
And how did you see whoever was in leadership handle that situation? And have you yourself ever had to deal with like something like that as a head coach up to this point?
Yeah. I think toxic in regard to the full team, no, but like toxic people, yeah.
That's a good delineation. Yeah, that makes sense.
I feel like the coaches I played for and the coaches I worked for, we've had unbelievable cultures, and what I mean by that, just the full group of people moving in the same direction. But are there bad apples? Yeah. And that's every year, I feel like. As a player, as a coach, you're always going to have the player in the program that maybe isn't all the way in, like 2 feet in, all about the team. And so handling those guys, as a player, I felt like you kind of just put up with them. Like, okay, what's coach going to do with this kid? Or they kind of fall in line, whatever their role may be. As a coach, you don't want bad apples. You really don't. And you try to go through your funnel and recruiting to make sure you have the right guys on the bus, so to speak. But at the end of the day, there will be, and you're dealing with 18 to 24-year-olds. And so kids are going to make bad decisions. Kids are going to maybe not be who they said they were, or just grow in the wrong direction, so to speak. And so it goes back to me, like the battle of grace versus truth. I played for a coach who was like all grace, like no matter what you did, I still love you, bud, or you're still on the team. Like which was like, that's why he was amazing. And I think as a coach, for me, like I mentioned earlier, still growing in that. What does that look like for me? Still young and still figuring it out. And so knowing that, like at the level I coach at, like guys won't be perfect on the court. They're not 5-star recruits. And they're not going to be perfect off the court too. And you and I were both 18 to 24 once, and we made bad decisions. And so being able to help a kid grow through that and do they have the awareness that I made a mistake, coach, I want to grow? Or are they like, nah, I'm good. Like, I think I'm God's gift to the earth. And I think it's being able to discern that, like, do you want to grow from this and be about the things we're about, or grow as a person, or grow in your faith? Or are you just so selfish that you're only thinking about yourself? And if that's the case, then we have to move on. And I think that's what I've learned as a leader here in the just couple of years I've been a head coach. That's what you're looking for, is the kids that have that growth mindset.
Is it possible in a coaching position, is it possible to move on from because the toxicity of a single individual that it can have on a work environment and on a team is crazy.
Right.
And so it's like, can you move on from a player, like say in the middle of the season, just be like, hey, this is not working? Or is that even an option that coaches have? Or is it you just kind of have to ride the train and mitigate the damage until the end of the season? And obviously you can part ways.
I mean, if it's to the extreme of like breaking rules, absolutely you can remove a player. If it's a cancerous personality where it's maybe like,
that's kind of more
they're operating in the gray area, and they just, it's behind the scenes and not necessarily, cussing out their teammates in the middle of like, that's harder to discern, and you want to be able to work with that kid. Like, hey, like, why aren't, like, what's wrong? Or how can I help you? Because we see your max potential, like as a person and as a player, and we want to help you. But if they're just operating in that gray area of toxicity and cancerous, and that's hard. And so those conversations honestly happen a lot at the end of the year with those types of kids, as you learn about the experience the whole team had, as you're reflecting on the year. And sometimes in the heat of the year, like, you're thinking next game, next scout, next practice. And so for me, at times, like, that's hard to see clearly in the middle of the season. But, when you take a big step back and look, like, man, we could have helped that kid more. And if removing him might have been the best thing for us. Yeah. So
one of the things I wanted to go back to that you said that really stuck out to me earlier was you talked about leadership, and you talked about standards, and you talked about how when you first take over as a head coach, you're not as friendly up front. You kind of come in with a heavier hand.
Yeah.
And then over time, you kind of let the rope out a little bit.
Right. Yep.
It's so easy in the front end to just let as much rope out so that everybody likes you right away.
Yeah, exactly.
However, when you've got to pull that back, if you do that, I would argue that it's pretty much impossible to pull it back after that.
Yep.
That you saying that, because you're 30,
right?
Which you told me. So I'm really impressed to hear you say that lesson learned. How did you learn that?
Yeah.
Was that something that you observed? Was that something that somebody mentored you in? Like, where did that kind of wisdom come from?
Yeah, good question. I think it was watching some of the coaches I worked for operate. And so I had the opportunity to work for some national championship level coaches as an assistant, and walked into their programs and cultures in the in the prime, so to speak, of their programs life, so to speak. And so kind of seeing on the back end of like, okay, like how did you get to this point? Because I was there for 1 or 2 or 3 years. And so being able to kind of walk through those questions, whether it was with former players that come back to games, or even just ask my boss, like, hey, we do this, but why do we do this? Well, let me tell you about what we did in my first couple of years. And so being able to just, take notes on what they did to kind of elevate their programs from an early standpoint, when I was able to walk into it as a very winning place. And knowing that when I ever took my first head coaching job, like, yeah, I'm doing that. And so I think just being able to take notes and learn from some of the best was in large part why I was able to walk into a situation and be able to understand that you got to be respected over liked. And at the end of the day, if you're after your kids liking you, like what you said, it'll crumble. Because kids liking you isn't why you do this. You want to earn the respect of your players and the people you lead. And that in large part deals with having hard conversations and doing hard things, and changing things that maybe were okay that now are no longer okay. And that's hard for people when there's adversity or resistance to something. Some people crumble and some people jump on board. And for us, we wanted to, so lack of a better term, lay down the law early. Like, this is who we're going to be, and if you're not about it, get out. And I think that helps clean up a organization or leadership structure to make sure you're going in the right direction.
It seems like such a simple principle to talk about,
right?
But in application, it is just so hard.
It is, and you're dealing with real people, and what I've learned is people are really people really struggle with having the difficult conversation, like the honest, difficult conversations. Like, hey, man, you're not living up to this, or hey, you need to meet this, or it's not going to work. People are afraid to tell the truth. And as I've grown in coaching, like, you have to be able to tell the truth, because it's only going to help a kid, even if they don't like it in the moment, or whoever may be in your organization. And so being able to tell the truth in a world where everyone has a different version of what truth is important. And that could be the truth of the gospel to a player that needs to hear it, or that could be literally the truth of a situation. Like, hey, you're not living up to our standards. Why? I think as year 2 here completed as a head coach, like, you got to be able to tell the truth. Have to.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things I'm seeing from a sport perspective, and I'm just more interested to kind of see your thoughts on this, is, the Super Bowl champion coach is 39.
Yeah.
Right. You have yourself, like, you're head coach in college at 30.
Right.
Like, is there like a phenomenon right now in sport with young coaches, or is it just a generational? Because I mean, there's still plenty, like, there's Tom Izzo, there's Tom Izzo, Bill Self, Mike Krzyzewski retired just a couple of years ago,
right.
and Nick Saban. So, Andy Reid, right?
Yep.
And like, there's plenty of older coaches. That's not what I'm saying, but
right.
It seems like there's almost like when I was growing up, Hudson, I very rarely saw young coaches.
Right. Yeah.
And now it's almost commonplace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, what do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. There is, I feel like in college basketball, there's an influx of younger coaches getting head coaching jobs. And I do think, as I've, I got to work for coaches in their 40s, and I played for a 65-year-old Hall of Fame coach. At the end of the day, like, it comes down to the relationships they can have with their kids. And so if a guy's 39 and can have great relationships and build trust and develop a winner, like, yeah, sure. I think administrations are more, and maybe I don't know if this is true at the professional level too, but more inclined to look at the younger guy because of the ability to relate with these kids. Like, the kids I'm coaching now, like, were probably born with a phone in their hand. And, I'm not too far removed from that. And so maybe being able to relate with them more, but I don't know if it's a direct correlation to the changes in leadership across the board, but there are still the OGs that are winning too, that are up there in age, that
Tom Izzo, man,
just know how to do it. So
automatic Sweet 16 lock every year.
Yeah.
Dude. So tell me, what's the future of robotics in basketball?
Robotics in basketball.
Dude, I saw this the other day. Like the Sean Ryan show is a podcast I listen to intermittently when he's got a guest on there that I want to listen to, and he had this robotics guy on there.
Yeah.
And dude, it's like I know that's kind of a joke question.
Yeah.
But the fact is that, dude, like, are you gonna have robots rebounding in basketball? So instead of that big net thing that catches it, are you gonna have just a humanoid down there, just like boop, boop, boop?
I'd invest in it. Get one of those in the furnace down in Lakeland, Florida. Yeah. I don't know. I think artificial intelligence is a good thing for basketball. Like
interesting
in regard to like stats and being able to measure things. But robots playing, those guys might go undefeated.
the mechanical version of the monster
trying to box out a robot. It's got to be hard.
This guy that I was listening to, this humanoid that they had was now they're centered around being used in the home virtually. Right. It's like it's insane. I mean, you talk about the fact of, you're dealing with a younger generation now who understands technology in a way that, if you don't have the ability to navigate or to swim in those waters, it's kind of hard to work with them.
Yep.
Which is fair. That's okay. Right. It's just a reality.
Yep.
But I mean, you have kids and so do I. It's like our kids are going to have multiple humanoid robots in their houses, and it's not weird. Yeah. It's not wrong, and it's not science fiction. Like they will have AI powered, or not AI powered, but they will have powered AI humanoid robots doing basic chores in their houses.
It's scary.
That's crazy. It's crazy, and I think about that even when it comes to its application in sport. Like they will, like we're going to see it.
Yeah,
it's not very far away.
It's not. If you can just think back when we were playing in high school and where the world is now, it's crazy.
It's mind-boggling. Yeah. Like, so when you say AI in basketball, what's kind of some of the uses for AI? Is it just data and analytics?
Data analytics, even like motion sensor cameras being able to film maybe a practice or a scrimmage or a game and stat it on the fly. Like things like that. They just take the manpower out that make your job easier, so to speak. And man, at the highest level, I'm sure there are things way beyond my knowledge that AI can do. But at the small college level, we would love to utilize that just because of the lack of manpower.
So that makes a ton of sense. Yeah. Do you think is this a crazy thing to talk about from a coaching perspective, or an idea? Do you think that they're able to feed game film into AI and then tell it, and prompt it, hey, give us patterns, give us whatever, give us, certain things of leanings of individual players and teams collectively from us? Do you think that stuff like that even exists right now, or is that just like me getting too into YouTube?
I bet it's getting there. There's a platform that we use that humans are the ones watching it and statting it, but I could imagine that coming down the road. Like they know how often John drives right and how well he shoots it when he drives right, and when he drives left, he's gonna pull up instead of get to the rim. Like there's metrics and systems out there that humans use to stat it, but I'm sure that's down the road. I'm sure it's coming.
So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was the nature of man, and because that's all. I mean, that's your entire world as a coach.
Yep.
I think is I don't think I'm taking too much of a liberty to say that to somebody who's not a coach, but all you do is just work with people.
Yeah.
And how does, from a worldview perspective, how does that influence, number one, or define your understanding of the human nature of man?
Yeah.
And then, in turn, the second question would be, how do you manage that?
Yeah. That's a really good question. Dealing with people. That's what coaching is people. Oh man. I think having a perspective that everyone was created in God's image, on purpose, for a purpose, is the basis. So when a kid is not living up to a standard or whatever it may be, having that basis of understanding, like, this kid was created in God's image. This kid is someone else's kid. He's someone else's child. Mm-hmm. He's got a mom and a dad. And so we need to love him at a really high level. But also in that, like, nature of man, we're born into a sinful world, and we're born sinners. That's what I believe. And because of the fall, we're naturally going to be inclined to not make the right decision more often than not, to live in sin to some degree. And so with that, like, having that understanding that they're created on purpose, but also that they're born into a broken world, and being able to walk through the messiness of 9 months with 18 to 24-year-olds and what that looks like every single day. And just being able to to be Jesus to those kids in regard to how I walk and talk, and making sure my actions speak louder than my words. But also being able to be grace and truth for these kids, and like arm around them when they're making a mistake, or when they're just going through it one day, or when grandma passed away and like they just need someone to give them a hug. You want to be there for them, but also you want to be able to show them like there is a better way, and it's, you know, through a relationship with Jesus. Like, you don't have to rely on your own ability to you know, make shots or whatever, because it's with all these kids, and the nature of man and what the world's telling them. To me, it comes down to like, who am I? Who really am I? My identity. And the world's telling all these kids that you need to do this, and that to be something. You need to make this amount of money. You need to score this amount of points. You need to go to this type of college. And at the end of the day, like, if your identity is not in the person of Jesus and who he says you are, like, you're going to be let down. And so hopefully we're walking that out for our players, and walking through the ups and downs and mistakes, but knowing who they are, knowing who they could become through a relationship with Christ. That's why you do what you do.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about was just we in the hyper individualization of our culture, the ability for individual people to build a brand,
right,
is, you know, at a place unlike any other, right?
Yeah.
Now, do you feel like, with that being the case for players these days, has that impacted, or does that make it a little bit more challenging to create a team dynamic when individuals can have such a far individual reach that didn't previously exist in the past?
Yeah, I think it adds a different element for sure. I mean, specific to the world we live in, is a social media central world, so to speak, especially in college athletics, where you talk about brand, where you talk about individualism, when you talk about it's all about me, and how I can better myself and my future. I think that teams that end up playing in March, or like this weekend in April, are teams that have figured out, like, hey, at the end of the day, like, basketball is still basketball, and you still have to be a team, and 5 guys still have to be connected on that end of the floor. And it's definitely a player's game. Like, and I think that's been the case since day one. Like, the players are the ones playing the game and making the plays and impacting it. But we live in a world now that says, like, you do that, so you should get rewarded for it, or you should think more about yourself because of that. And at the end of the day, though, like, the best teams have a group of guys that don't care who gets the credit, and that I don't think will ever change.
Yeah.
And so being able to, you can still have your brand, but like, leave it at the door when you step on the floor. And the like, if you love basketball, if you love to compete, you love to win, then you're going to lay down your selfish ambitions at the door. And those are the teams that play deep into tournaments and win games.
It really is. To me, it's kind of an encouraging thing to think about the fact of, you know, we have a tendency, like I said earlier, sensationalism, right? We have a tendency to look at the reality of trending in our world and our culture and stuff like that. And it can be very difficult to see those and not become sensationalized.
Yep.
But as I hear you talking about all of these things, all of these different nuances and challenges that you're facing on a day-to-day basis, there's these consistent realities that just remain steady.
Yep.
Right. Like, in the end, yes, there's a huge branding opportunity for individual athletes now that's never existed before in the history of the world.
Yeah.
Right. But it doesn't change the fact that if you truly want to build a brand, you got to be on a successful team.
Yeah.
And there's only one way to be successful as a team.
For sure.
Right. And so, well, not one way, but just the general idea of cohesion. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Right.
And so it's interesting to hear you talk about these things, and just the reality of it kind of goes back to just worldview and truth.
Yeah.
Right. The world operates in a certain way.
Yep.
Right. It was designed by God. We broke it in our sin.
Yeah.
He's brought reconciliation and redemption in Christ.
Right.
And then inevitably he will bring Jesus will return. So so, like, there's just that meta narrative of scripture, but also the meta narrative of the story of the world.
Yeah.
And so it's just an encouraging thing to just think about the consistency and the stability that creates, and what is a hyper, like, one of the things that I've learned, and one of the things that's so important to me in this podcast, is to not be sensational, because I remember there's times where I was listening to stuff where by the time I got home at the end of the day, because I have a job where I can listen to stuff, it was impacting how I was interacting with my family.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, like, That's just not it.
Yeah,
You know,
for
and
sure.
so the reason I say that is I apologize for going on a monologue. I came here to talk to you.
All truth. It's good.
The reason I say that is that it's encouraging to hear you, a
Yeah.
guy who is in leadership, a guy who is facing pressure, a guy who is dealing with all of that stuff on a day in and day out basis, kind of say, hey man, like, yeah, there's a lot going on, but you know, these common threads are still the common threads.
Yeah. And I think you could look over the course of history and sport and even in business maybe, and maybe you could speak to that more than I could, but like at the end of the day, like some of these gospel truths can be found in really any successful organization. We live in a hyper individualistic world where it's all about you, but man, like people are still drawn to teams and still drawn to the underdog, right? That's like Jesus is still has his inner workings in everything that we do. And so, man, it is cool to see, even in a broken world, like God can still move even amongst the brokenness. And that there's still truths about who he is in broken situations and organizations and teams.
Well, you even go back to the idea of community, right? Like,
Yeah.
you ever heard of the book Tribe by Sebastian Junger?
Yeah.
Right. So like, you know, a guy who does not have the same worldviews I do, right?
Right.
A guy who's a naturalist, based off of the writing, it would seem that he's an atheist, based off of his approach. But, you know, he looks at, you know, he describes a tribe. He describes, which is a team.
Right.
And he talks about the simple fact of just giving more than you're taking.
Yeah.
You know, is that a conversation you've ever had with your players? It's like, hey, listen, in the end, are you giving more to this team than you're taking from it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk with our guys about like emptying your tank and being a fountain, not a drain. How are you giving and elevating the room when you walk into it, whether it's the film room or the practice floor or a game, and so like that's true. Like at the end of the day, the best teams are teams that are filled with people who want to make others better, and there's a level of self-sacrifice. And to us, that's living last. Like that's an example of what Jesus told us to do in Matthew, right? To love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. That is self-denying, self-denial of my own interests for the better of a group and for a team. And you can look at any random team that's won a championship, and there's a level of that, which is cool.
So one of the things that I've been interested to ask a coach about is just the grind of the coaching experience. I don't personally know what that's like,
right?
But I have obviously heard about it. I've seen about it. You hear about it, right? You can watch, during the NFL season, I like to watch the Pat McAfee show. You listen onto the show and then people talk about the grind of the sports life. So, number one, what's that like?
Yep.
And then when we think about it from worldview perspective, like what keeps you steady through that grind?
That's a good question. The grind is a real thing, but there's rhythms to it, and especially in college basketball, there's rhythms where at the small college level, your summer's a little bit more relaxed than the middle of February in conference play, and so I'm still learning this, and I have an incredible wife who is very gracious and learns alongside of me. But learning to keep the main thing. Like I need to pursue the Lord every single morning when I wake up. I need to put my family ahead of myself. And then I need to do my job at a really high level. And so that, like, at the end of the day, like if I'm pursuing my days and kind of that order, then I'm doing the right thing. But there is a real grind to it in regard to, like, there's time and effort to be really good. And that's with anything. How do you manage that time? How do you go about your business and being able to delegate things that maybe I don't need to do, but I have a staff that can do it. Those are important things to learn, and I'm still learning those. But at the end of the day, like from September 1st to hopefully April 1st, you're really busy. Like you're practice 6 days a week. Typically we treat Sunday as a family day. Like that's kind of our Sabbath, so to speak, where kind of put work down and enjoy family and going to church and just being present. But Monday through Saturday, it's a grind from September to late March, hopefully. And so, it ebbs and flows. Like you get, the small college level, we're able to give our guys a week off for Christmas, and that's really a beautiful thing. And, it just kind of comes with the territory that people outside of coaching don't really understand. Like, what do you do all day? I'm just a glorified PE teacher. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, there's a real rhythm and routine to each day. recruiting's its own beast. Preparing your team to win games it's a real beast. Making sure your student athletes are going to class and doing all those things is really important. So it ebbs and flows. The summer is definitely a more relaxed time for us at the small college level, but the grind is a real thing, and you got to have an unbelievable wife and a support system to be able to do what you love at a high level.
So for coaches, do you even have the capacity, not capacity, that's the wrong word. Do you have the space to be able to have like a personal hobby, right? So you want, say, woodworking. So you like woodworking, right? Do you even have the ability to do things like that? Or is it for coaches, oftentimes your hobby is the sport that you coach and do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know some coaches that do have real hobbies outside of the sport. For me, I love basketball, so that kind of is my hobby. And it's something that kind of drives me to grow as a leader and as a man. And it's one of those sports where, man, there's so many different ways you can win a game, and so there's something you can always learn, and that's what I love about it. And there's so many high level leaders and coaches in America and even internationally that do things differently. And you want to learn and grow as much as you can, and then figure out what's best for you. And so I spend a lot of time thinking about it. My wife would argue way too much time thinking about it, but my job is a little bit of my hobby too, for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have whether as a player or as a coach, do you have, and when you look back, do you have a favorite moment or experience? Let me give you an example. We were, one of my coaches in college, he was awesome guy. I really let him down, actually. It's a different story, but the point is that he, every 4 years, he went, every 3 years.
Yeah.
Every 3 years, he took the team to Hawaii.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And we would play like Chaminade and some of those teams that hosted the Maui Invitational. So we would just play a couple games, but then in the end, it was a really fun trip to just go on. Our coach was so cool to do that. And, but the point is that we were there. And so I played at his school in Kentucky. So we had some good old Kentucky boys down there, and they were awesome, man. They're just the best. And, but one of them, his name was, I'm not going to say his name, but he came from really rural Kentucky out towards the Appalachians.
The sticks.
Yeah, dude. And he was hammered, dude. And we were at this beach ukulele concert. And all of a sudden I hear somebody screaming, and I look down. He's standing 15 feet away from the stage, and this guy playing a chill ukulele. And he's got his arms up out wide, screaming. He's screaming Freebird as loud as he can.
That's awesome.
Asking this guy to play Freebird on his ukulele. And I was just sitting there, and I was just like, I was looking around, and I was like, what are we doing? This guy on the stage was being so chill. He's like, okay, man, okay.
I'll get to it, don't worry.
He's like, relax. But the fact of the matter is that, like, it was hysterical to watch.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it was so funny. Like, do you have a moment or experience you can reflect on that's a good memory?
Yeah, a lot. Off the jump, as a coach, it's fun to be able to give your guys those experiences, right? And that's a little bit why you do what you do, is to just develop those core memories for down the road for your players. Like, hopefully, they'll remember the big wins, but at the end of the day, they can remember the guys they did it with and the moments off the floor more than anything. And so, as a coach, we've been able to take our guys to the Grand Canyon.
That's cool.
Which was awesome. And we challenged them that we're going to hike all the way down, all the way back up, and then go play a game 2 days later. That was a really fun memory. With a group we had.
Do you have anybody do any meltdowns?
Meltdowns. No, we just crushed it.
Nice.
We just crushed it. It was awesome. And that was the type of guys we had too. They just give us a challenge, we'll go do it. There's hilarious moments in preseason conditioning as a coach and a player of just guys surviving and thriving in those moments. I think my favorite memory from when I played was just being able to get to a Final Four as a player, and just like the moments in between the games, like you're just at a hotel in downtown Kansas City, and you're just having fun, with your teammates. And so those were some fun moments. But yeah, that's the idea. Like, you want to give your guys shared experiences that they remember forever. And like you said, like, you remember your teammate playing, or
He wanted free bird, man. He wanted it bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And those moments will last forever. And those are things that you can laugh about forever.
Yeah. So just kind of to close it out, man, number one, thanks. I appreciate you. I really appreciate it. But when you think about one of the things I wanted to kind of consider is legacy. And, there's kind of a legacy for me a little bit with a guy like Tom Izzo, right? I've never met the dude in my life, never will. Right? Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that in a way, almost he's had a quasi impact on me in a way, right? So when you think about that in light of your experience, is that something that you think about in the now, or do you think that that's something that's just developed over the standards that you've talked about and just not giving up on those as you go? Yeah,
I think the latter for sure. I think as a coach, you're very much in the moment. For me, I oftentimes don't think about legacy. You want your players to leave your program a better man. For me, I want them to know who Jesus is, and then I want them to go to make an impact on others. And so, hopefully, like you said, Tom Izzo had a indirect impact on you as a player. For me, I want our direct impact to be on our guys, and maybe it's 20 years from now them calling us saying, "Man, coach, you remember when you said this?" Or, "Coach, I finally get it. Like, man, living last. Like, coach, I had a kid, I have a wife. Like, and I'm not there yet. Like, I'm still young. Don't have guys calling me about their college experiences with playing for us. But in the moment, you're definitely just about the process and trying to be the best version of our staff and our program every single day. And that when I played for my college coach, he was on the tail end of his career. So having certain players come back that played for him 30 years earlier, like, those were really cool moments for us as a group of guys, seeing like, oh shoot, this guy has the same stories we do. Like, coach hasn't changed. Like, he's still himself 30 years later. And so hopefully that's what players are, remembering the most, is the impact their coach had on them, and how it helped shape who they are to some degree. And their experience in our program has, elevated their opportunity to make an impact on others.
Yeah. One of the things that, and you've hinted at it multiple times, which, for being a younger coach, right? Like, some of the lessons that you're talking about, man, were hard learned for me.
Right.
And to see you applying them is just, I think that's great. There's people who are leaders, man. There's people that are naturally inclined to leadership, and there's people that God's given the gift to lead.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a skill that can be learned.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It absolutely can. There may be people who are not naturally inclined to leadership, and God's called people who are not naturally inclined to leadership to lead, because the glory's his, not theirs.
Right. AKA Moses.
Yeah. Right. Yep. So there's plenty of biblical examples for that. But the fact is that there's also people that just have a gift to do it. Right. And I think that, I'm not a good read on people, but I think that you do.
I appreciate that.
Too. And I think that, for anybody who might have a listen to the podcast, I think it could be beneficial for them to be like, hey, there's some really solid people out there in this world, in this industry, in this culture that are having solid and beneficial impact. So kudos to you for that, man.
Yeah,
and,
it.
I'll be continuing to consider you and think about you as you guys continue to move forward at Southeastern, and wish you guys the best of success, obviously, in this off season.
Yeah.
And good season last year, though, right?
Yeah, we had a good year. We definitely made a jump from year one to year two. So excited to continue to build on that and kind of create that standard on the floor for our program.
Yeah.
So,
well, the final thought I have, if you don't mind, is the fact that you've said it a couple times, and I just want to reinforce this as an encouragement for anybody who could, ever potentially have a listen. Is just like the lesson of leadership, of the difficulty and the challenge of leading and being unpopular in the moment because you're doing what's right.
Yeah.
The difficulty and the challenge of that is absolutely and unequivocally nothing.
Right.
Compared to the pain of, on the back end, losing and not having the respect of the people you were leading because you did not have the fortitude to do what was right in the initial moment.
Yep.
That's a hard lesson that I learned when I was young.
Yep.
And it's a pain that still sticks with me to this day.
Right.
And it should stick with me. I'm not a victim.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I made a decision and I was wrong.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it well.
Yep.
There's consequences for that. But I see guys who they still have the guys they led that are calling them. They're talking to them. They're still, and I don't. And I shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because I lost that honor.
Yeah.
And to hear you talking about that knowledge and understanding, to talk about, hey, like, I'm coaching right now, but I'm coaching in a way to where my hope is not that my guys like me now. My hope is that in 20 years, they're giving me a call. That's just really special to see you learn and apply that right now, man. I think that's really cool. Yeah. And I think it's encouraging for me to remember. I think it'll be encouraging for anybody else who has to listen to learn that lesson, because it just is. So, just from a parting shot perspective, last thing for you here, but do you have any kind of parting thoughts?
Yeah, I think this has been really good for me, just to continue to reflect on who I am as a coach and where I want to go, and in regard to leadership, and knowing that you're not perfect and you're going to make mistakes. And I think what you're doing here on this podcast can open the eyes of people who maybe see things a different way, and can reveal some things about whatever the topic may be. And for today, it was coaching, and maybe college basketball to some degree. But yeah, just really appreciate the opportunity to be on the show and just converse about things that matter to me specifically, but also I think that can impact the world when you're dealing with such a multiple generation of kids that at some point are going to be adults, right? And lead their own families one day. Like that matters. And so as we continue to build our program at Southeastern, want to put difference makers out in the world to go be husbands, to go be fathers, to go be difference makers. So really appreciate you having me on, and this has been a joy, and obviously love you guys, and excited for your podcast to keep growing.
Thanks, man. Yeah, keeping the grind, dude. Hey, thanks for trash talking me on the show and making me feel like
I had to.
Dude, that's just the reality, man. That's how it is, dude. I wish you would have seen some of the trash talking. Dude, disaster.
We can go play in the driveway right now.
No, like